Okay, so it's March, which means it's almost spring, and thank goodness for that. I can't do this cold weather stuff, no flowers, no sunlight. It's not for me. But that also means that we are on to our next Jane Austen book, which is Sense and Sensibility. I'm going to try to read this in about 10 days and do a little bit faster pace than what I did for Emma. I think it'll help me engage with the text a little bit better. But let's just go over our little tabs. So once again, we have feminism. I think that's going to happen pretty much every time. The sass, which really is just anything that I find particularly clever. And then appearance versus reality, which I read is one of the themes. So I hopefully will find that. The other books that I'm reading is Belladonna, which is a gothic YA novel. I'm going to put it on pause for a little bit until I finish Sense and Sensibility, but just so we all know. And then my audiobook is Paris Hilton's memoir, which is honestly really good. Definitely trigger warnings though, for like abuse, assault, a lot of stuff. Another thing is this is a puzzle and it's gonna be here probably for the rest of the videos. I'm gonna take forever to complete this, and if it's gone, it's either because I actually finished it or because I got tired and decided to put it away for now. So, Sense and Sensibility, let's go. So with Sense and Sensibility, I am about 26% of the way through, and I only know that because my audiobook app tells me that stuff. And first impressions, this isn't a reread like Emma is. This is my first time reading it. I kind of knew some of the premise because I did watch the movie one time from like 1995 and then got bored and then quit like halfway through, which made me a little bit concerned for reading the book. But actually, I'm really enjoying it. As I'm reading it, it kind of reminds me sometimes of Little Women, and I think that's just because, like, you got sister dynamics going on, you got also, like, class dynamics going on with, like, this view of poverty, and I put poverty in air quotes because, like, they have an English cottage. I mean, yeah, I know they're not homeowners, and it's not big enough that they can throw their parties, but they got a garden in the English countryside. So, like, I'm not mourning their loss. Sorry. Some, like, small complaint just about this particular copy of the book. I bought it because it was pretty, and also it has illustrations, which I thought was cool. But it is very stocky, like, stumpy. I don't know. I can't figure out adjectives. But the issue is that after I read it for a while, if I'm holding it, then my hand will start cramping, which is just a little inconvenience. But yeah, so like that's kind of where I'm at right now. I want to take a moment to decompress, talk about where I am in Sense and Sensibility. So I wrote out a script for myself just because there's so much, and I'm trying not to like be overbearing with the amount of information that I'm going to give. So if you don't want spoilers, I'll leave a timestamp somewhere because there's going to be spoilers. Okay, so the premise / where I am. Mother Dashwood has 3 girls, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret. 2 Dashwood dads recently died, so now John Dashwood has inherited stuff, and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with these useless women. So him and his wife Fanny kind of reason with themselves that it's totally fine to give the Dashwood girlies a huge cut in their income and ship them off to a cottage, leaving Mother Dashwood, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret to relocate to said cottage. So they're in the cottage, country life, whatever. So while frolicking in a field, Marianne messes up her ankle, and a mysterious hero carries her home. His name is Willoughby. And then Willoughby winds up ghosting Marianne. Marianne is not okay, but she later agrees to go to London with this lady, Mrs. Jennings, and her sister Eleanor. Marianne writes to Willoughby telling him she's in London. She gets no response, but then she does get a letter from him where he's basically like, hey, I'm gonna gaslight you about our relationship. Also, I'm actually engaged to another woman. Meanwhile, Eleanor has been having a situationship with this guy, Edward, for a bit, and while visiting some neighbors around their cottage, she meets Lucy Steele, who is very, like, fake nice girl / true mean girl energy, and she tells Eleanor that she's actually been engaged to Edward for, like, 4 years, but Eleanor can't tell anyone. She has to keep this secret for her. So Marianne has been like full on mourning and pining out in the open, on the streets, in the club, and Eleanor has been mourning softly inside of herself. And where I am right now is where both Marianne and also Mrs. Jennings have just found out through another source who isn't Eleanor about Edward and Lucy's 4-year engagement. And then also, for context, there's another character, Colonel Brandon, who has a crush on Marianne, and Eleanor is really supportive of him courting Marianne, but Marianne doesn't really like see or consider him because she's still hung up on her fuckboy Willoughby. So that's where we are. That's what's happened. And I don't have any critical thoughts for you on this evening because it's Friday and I've already worked all day and I've driven like all over the world, it feels like. But tomorrow's Saturday, and then we have Sunday, and I'm hoping to have like critical thinking skills and maybe some interesting points to say other than like the basic plot. Okay, I finished Sense and Sensibility this morning. Also, side note, this thing is not going to stay where it's supposed to stay, and we're all going to have to deal with that. But Sense and Sensibility, first initial thought is that it feels like baby Pride and Prejudice, which I actually looked up that Jane Austen wrote Sense and Sensibility, and then as she was kind of finishing that up, she started writing Pride and Prejudice, or like the first draft of it. So, I mean, that makes sense of why I feel like there's a lot of similarity. The main area that I see it is, of course, in Willoughby and Wickham, because they're very similar tropes / like stock characters. The thing about Willoughby is that he does get a redemption arc, which I am 100% against. I'm like, this man is awful. I hate him. I'm not interested in humanizing him. He is a monster, and I'm petty, and I'll continue to hold grudges, and I don't care that he's sorry about what he did. But I do feel like with Willoughby, we do see one of the common themes of, I have to look at my notes a lot, sorry, of appearance versus reality, which is one that I looked up on the internet of a theme for this book. And that's actually what a lot of the tabs are too. And one of the main areas that I kind of see this appearance versus reality is the struggle between social morality and conscious morality. And what I mean by that is like social morality is like what you should do in society based on what society wants you to do or expects from you. Conscious morality is more of like how to be an actual decent person. And you see that a lot with the characters of like they appear to be doing this in a particular way in order to comply with social standards or what is the etiquette, but the reality is, or their true intentions are completely different. Like that's kind of how I normally see it come up. And with Willoughby, he has like his little speech at the end of his redemption arc that I disagree with, but we do kind of see a little insight into like what Jane Austen is really driving at with this book, in my opinion. And it says, the world made him extravagant and vain made him cold-hearted and selfish, which isn't very common. Like there's a lot of really selfish people in this book. There's only so many decent men, really. There's two, and one ends up with Marianne and one ends up with Eleanor, and both of them make me happy. I'm glad of the matches in the end. The most infuriating person, though, is John Dashwood. I hate him so much, and I know that's the point, but like, oh my god. At the end, there was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna get it. He's not gonna say something stupid. He actually is gonna get something right. And I was wrong. Of course I was. And I'm trying to find it right now. That's why I'm flipping through. But I confess, it would give me great pleasure to call Colonel Brandon brother, period. And I'm like, okay, he's gonna say something smart. Like, he gets it. He's gonna understand that Colonel Brandon is an awesome dude, and that's why you wanted to be his brother. He says, his property here, his place, his house, everything is in such respectable and excellent condition. His woods. You're missing the point, man. You missed the, like, I literally say in here, I'm like, shut up. Shut up. He makes me so angry. But, you know, again, that's the whole point, is Jane Austen just kind of being like, hey, guys, like, don't get so caught up in society and the material world. Like, there's other things to value. Don't get so caught up that you're blindsided to everything else. I mean, those are kind of like the main things that I definitely wanted to note. I would say, comparing this to Emma, reading and plot-wise, this is great. This is amazing. Like, I actually really enjoyed it. I feel like a lot of times it winds up getting very mid-tier, and I think that's an injustice. As far as, like, character goes, I mean, Eleanor Marianne cannot hold a candle to Emma. But as far as, like, plot and, like, plot twist, and I was, like, really on edge sometimes reading this. And to be fair, it's probably because it's my first time reading it and not a reread like Emma was, but, like, I think Sense and Sensibility doesn't get the love that it probably really deserves. I'm gonna end it here, and I will see you guys in May for Persuasion.